Hi everyone, I'm Gilly Carr and I'm the Director of Studies in Archaeology here at St Catharine's, and I've come to the college library to show you some of the amazing things that we found in 2017 when we had some building work done in college, and we had some pipes dug up and laid, and when the workmen were doing this work they were coming across various bits and pieces having dug into the main court of college. And so I popped around with my little finds tray and picked things up and put them to one side, and they form part of the college's collection now of its own archaeology. So I wanted to show you some of these objects because I think they're rather wonderful. And it's important to say that as archaeologists, it's not all about finding gold or finding amazing, beautiful things, but even the smallest things give archaeologists quite a lot of happiness and thrill. So let me show you some of the things. I've got them all ranged around me here, and I'm going to start with perhaps the most mundane objects, and I've got bags of bones. Now these are all animal bones. There's even a jaw here, and what these tell us really is about the diet of the people who lived and worked in college. So obviously these are animals that have been butchered for their meat. Now probably they were butchered in the marketplace not too far from college, and chunks of meat brought back for the fellows and the students to eat. And by looking at these bones, I mean, an archaeologist will often start with looking for butchery marks. So for example, you might look at the end of the bone to see if they were cut by a cleaver, or whether the meat was scraped off by a knife, and you can sometimes see those marks in the bones, on the bones. But also looking at the species of the animal and the joint of or the part of the animal represented, it tells you something about the joints of meat that people were eating, whether they were sort of the high status, fine, most tasty parts of meat, or whether they were the sort of the scrappy part of the animal. And I dare say this jawbone tells you something rather obvious. But let's see what else we've got. I mean, there's so many things around here that I want to show you. We've also got, oh, I thought you might like to see, we have got some oyster shells. Now you're probably thinking, oyster, high status, that must have been the food of the fellows, but not at all. Oysters were actually a very low status common food that that people ate, and we found a lot of oyster shells. So whether these were being eaten by the college servants or the students, we of course can't know for sure who was eating these. I personally absolutely love oysters. But what else have we got? Now we've also got a lot of clay pipes. Now I don't know if you've ever seen clay pipes, but before people had cigarettes, you'd sort of smoke and throw away, people would have very long clay pipes like this, and so we found a lot of stems of pipes and the bowls as well. Now I'm going to hold these a little closer to the camera because this one, I don't know if you can see. Let's see if I can get it to focus on this rather than my face. That's going to be a little bit difficult, I think. So you're just going to have to take my word for it that this one has a little stamp, a little embossed stamp on the end there. And it's also got, it's got some initials. It's got two stamps, and it says the initials are PW. And it seems to be the image of an eagle or something. I can't quite tell. So if you were an expert in clay pipes, which I'm not, I admit, you would perhaps be able to work out which company had made these clay pipes and which part of the country or where on the continent this pipe was made. So this is rather a nice one because it's got a stamp on. But we've got bags full of bits of clay pipe stems. We've got some little ones here. These all date to different periods. So we once we dated them, we kept each of them apart, but we've got bags of clay pipe stems. We've also got, and I just love these, we've got some bowls. Now, these are the bowls at the end of the clay pipe, and these are the things that you'd have put your tobacco in here and, smoke it. And this one is a late 16th century one, and we've also got a late 17th century one. And we've also got an 18th century one. And you're probably thinking, well, how on earth do you date these? And it's rather simple, but it's rather clever. Now, when people first started to smoke, with clay pipes, smoked tobacco. Tobacco was very expensive, and so the clay pipes tend to have smaller bowls because, there'd be less tobacco because it was expensive. And the hole which drew up the smoke was smaller, so you'd get through it more slowly. Whereas if you go for the more recent ones, the bowl is bigger and the hole is slightly larger, so you can get more tobacco in. And it's sort of, you can see the evolution of bowls. And actually, although these are plain bowls, they're not decorated, you do find ones, if you're lucky, with all sorts of beautiful designs on. And I remember when I was a child, maybe a little budding archaeologist, I remember wading in a stream at the bottom of my garden, and I came across one it was in the shape of a man's face. It was amazing. Of course, goodness knows where it is now. Perhaps my mother threw it out. But, I just, I love that. Now, what else have we got? I've got to show you some bits of ceramic. Now, I've got various bits arranged around me. Now, this one is quite a utilitarian one. It's some glazed red earthenware. You can see the glaze catching the light there. We call it utilitarian because it's fairly chunky. I don't know if you can see that. Now, if you're anything like me, I'm always dropping the china at home, and I'm always smashing mugs and plates unintentionally. Can I just say I've got rather butterfingers for an archaeologist. It's not an impediment to being an archaeologist, I must say. Now, the chunkier your ceramic, one would imagine if you drop it, it's going to be fairly robust. And also, if you're going to, let's say, have a vessel, a storage vessel for the pantry, it's not going to be delicate, beautiful bone china. It's probably going to be something fairly chunky. So we can perhaps imagine that this might have been something from the college kitchens or pantry that would have, a platter maybe, or a vessel that perhaps would have been used for storage. Now, I don't know if you can see, you might have to take my word for this, there's a slight sort of curve to it, very slight, which perhaps indicates that this was a platter like this, and you can see a little bit of the rim. But if I pick up something else, excuse me, let me just reach behind my computer here. We have got some Westerwald stainware, German 18th century, from a flagon or jug. Look at that, look at the design on that, isn't that pretty? So, I mean, it's fairly simple, but that design enables us to identify where it's from, what type it is, what age it is, and look, that's much thinner compared to the one I just shown you. So this shows you it's more fine, it's higher status. Now, this sort of thing is unlikely to have been used in the college kitchens for storage. It's probably, of course we can't say for sure, we haven't got a time machine, but it's probably used at high table for the fellows to be dining in style. I've also got some other nice items I'd like to show you. So let me just reach behind my computer again and show you this bit of Chinese porcelain, probably a tea bowl. You can see the stamp at the bottom, that's the base of it, and inside a rather pretty flower design. So again, this is a very sort of delicate, pretty item. Again, it's high status, it's 18th century, and again we tell that by typology, by glaze, by design. When one is learning about how to identify pottery, there are various ways that you can learn that. You can look in books, you can go to museums and match things up, but one learns these things. But isn't it a pretty piece? Let's see what else I've got. Now this bit, actually this is rather interesting. When the workmen were doing their work, we found things which seem to indicate the earlier phase of college. Now, I should explain that the college was founded in 1473, but the buildings of the college date from the 17th century onwards. And the older phase of the college at some point was knocked down and the newer phase built. And the thing is that we don't know precisely where or what those old buildings were. We have old maps which give us indications, but those maps were not sort of constructed according to modern surveying techniques, so they're sort of indicative maps really, and they indicate that the old chapel of the 1473 foundation was in the middle of main court of college, and so maybe those foundations are still beneath the soil, and what we find is some indication of that. And we found a little bit of, this is a glazing bar from stained glass window, And of course, where do you find stained glass windows? In chapels. So this perhaps is a little indication of the original chapel that was in college, that was part of college in the older iteration of college. So that's rather exciting. So, which I mean, you don't have to find gold in order to really kind of be excited by the kinds of things that you've got. Oh, and I'm going to show you one last thing. And now this is, right, if you're an academic, what better symbol of academia can you find as an archaeologist but an inkwell? Isn't this great? This inkwell was found in the when the workmen were digging a hole in the master's garden. Every college in Cambridge has a master who's the head of the college, and most of them live in lodges which are a part of the college grounds. And so we found this inkwell. Isn't it gorgeous? Isn't it lovely? This made me particularly happy. So, archaeology is all about, you can read so much into the tiny little pieces of material culture, of artifacts, and begin to build up a picture about those who lived in the space where you live today. So I hope that's piqued your interest in the archaeology of the college. And thank you for watching.